Hey, AfterBuzzers, we're here to talk Season 6 of New Girl, Episode 8, James Wonder, so stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Gotta love that theme song. Hello, AfterBuzzers. We are back, and we're talking about Episode 8, James Wonder. Winston was quite the character this episode. I'm your host, Ally Nasta. You can find me on Twitter at Ally Nasta and on Instagram at AllieGirl. And Tessa Cavel, where can they find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Tessa_Cavel.
Yeah, so this episode was very entertaining. Winston, finally, I feel like sometimes he gets a little gypped, but this episode was really catered to him and his funny ways. But right off the bat, how did you feel about no brought up about Robbie? There was no date. No second date.
I was so bummed because that's exactly what I was looking forward to. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of honestly got a little distracted at the beginning of the episode with Winston. It's like I completely forgot right away. But then I thought about it after I finished watching. I was like, wait a minute. Like, there was no Robbie.
I know. I actually, once I finished the episode, I then was like, wait a second. Like, last episode, didn't we talk about going on a second date? Because It's funny, we, led up 2 episodes, and it was like, Robbie, and then, of course, no Robbie. Mm-hmm. No, confrontation between Nick and Jess. They're just totally, completely normal. So, I think, for now, I'm just going to let it go, the whole Nick and Jess thing. I just need to let it go and then see where this whole thing plays out. But Jess's whole struggle this episode was just trying to become principal.
Yeah.
So how did you feel about her feeling? I feel as if her trying to become principal was a little off in the beginning. So I'm like, well, if she's vice principal, wouldn't that just be I didn't think that the parents would not like her that much to where they didn't want her to be principal.
No, I found that very strange because Jess, of course, she's a great educator. In my opinion, she's so passionate about the children. So it was weird when Genevieve was talking, these aren't my words, but we don't like Jess, and da-da-da, going on and on and on, get rid of her, all this stuff. I was like, whoa, that's some serious stuff.
It was serious, and Genevieve is the one that was like, you're going to be perfect for this job. You're going to be perfect for this position. So that kind of threw me off, but then obviously we know why. It's because the whole struggle was her to become principal. And so then I am so excited to talk about James Wonder.
Me too. I was actually reading a couple articles at lunch, and one of them was like, New Girl gave us the best gift this week, more Winston. And I think it's so true because I think he constantly kind of gets not really thrown to the side, but I think there's so many good, strong characters in the show that Winston often isn't always the bright, shining star. And I think I continually forget how much I love him because he's not always up front and center.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it was maybe 2 seasons ago, or maybe it was last season, where all of a sudden something clicked, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love Winston.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, it was all, Nick had his, cutesy kind of banter, where you were like, oh, I love Nick, and then Schmidt, obviously, is just Schmidt, you can't help but not love the guy, but we didn't see too much, so it was really exciting to finally, instead of Winston just having, his small little moments, we got a whole episode of his comedy with making up a character because he wants to become an undercover cop.
Amazing. No, I loved it so much.
Yeah, and I thought he was doing a really good job of being undercover, and they weren't giving him enough credit. But when they were eating breakfast, he goes, "Ha!" And they were all like, "What?" They're like, "You didn't know you were having breakfast with James Wonder." They were like, "What are you talking about?" But okay, so when he got Jess to be convinced that James Wonder was going to help her out and help her become principal. How did you feel about him accepting this date to go with hang out with Genevieve, even though he knew that she was possibly wanting to get with him?
I think it continues to show us that Winston's just such a good friend. Yeah. And I think we forget all these things about him all the time because he's not very dramatic and doesn't have all these crazy problems Jess or Schmidt
or Nick.
Can't
commit, can't get a job.
But it just, I don't know. I just love Winston. I think I just fell in love with him all over again this episode. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think when they were at dinner and he was he finally admitted to dating Ally, I was like, thank goodness. I was getting a little nervous because Genevieve was getting a little touchy. Which,
oh my God, she's crazy.
She's really crazy.
She's insane. I was like, whoa. And she's like, oh, hold my hand. Did I say breast?
Yeah,
I
you're
mean
like,
hand. I was like, what?
What's happening?
You're crazy.
She kind of, in the beginning when she was looking at James Wonder and that like lusty eye, whatever she was doing, I was confused because I'm like, she either is gonna like, she was looking to find out whether Winston was like undercover, like, oh, I don't believe you. I was like, she's either gonna like throw him under the bus or she was like flirting with him. And then turns out, yep, she was for sure eye flirting and like was in love with him, which I think Winston did a very good job of keeping his composure.
Oh, yeah. And stupid Jess. I'm like, come on, Jess. Like, don't break his character. Don't try to.
I know. And I was getting nervous for a second because I thought they were going to find out that like he was undercover. And then you know how Winston sometimes gets overwhelmed and he's like, okay, like I'm sorry. And like would have apologized. But he stood his ground. And I was happy because the dad, Ed, was just really not going for Jess.
No, so much hate.
So much hate. Which I was really excited that when she finally, like, I thought she was going to go along with him and Jess wasn't going to stand her ground on how she feels as an educator. And I was a little nervous about that. Were you?
Wait, who, Genevieve?
No, Jess. When she was like, oh yeah, like I'll conform to what Ed wants for the kids. I was nervous that she was going to like completely conform and then it was like going to turn into this whole like kind of like double-edged sword.
Oh, yeah. I see. Okay.
So like she'd become principal and then she would have conformed to like all the things that like the parents would want. But I was glad that she stuck her ground on this. We had a lot of people standing up for what they believe in.
But I feel like at the end of the day, Jess always tends to do that. So to be honest, I wasn't that worried that she was going to morph.
I was a little worried.
I was predicting she was going to do exactly what she did. Like, see that this was not what she was kind of hoping it would be.
Yeah.
And then be like, okay, well, if you don't want it the way I want it, this isn't going to work, I'm going to leave.
Yeah, which is good, and I'm glad, because I feel like her last school, she kind of got sucked into it. When she was, like, doing all that work for the principal, she, like, ended up, like, just kind of, like, just doing what she had to do. But I was really glad that like finally, because she's had so many different jobs and she's like jumped around and she hasn't had something that she's really like passionate and cares about. So I'm really excited for her and her character because now she gets to be principal, she gets to make up her own rules and the parents seem to love her now. So no, that was really exciting. But I definitely will give it to Winston for James Wonder. I loved his character. I want James Wonder to come back.
I really hope he's in the next episode.
Me too. And he was like doing this with his face and he was just, I don't know, just something about James Wonder really got me. It was hilarious. And, you know, speaking of things that are all of hilarious, CISO, which is one of our sponsors, I actually just downloaded, or not downloaded, but I bought the app. Have you heard about CISO?
I have. I actually just heard about it the other day, ironically enough.
Yeah, so, I mean, hey, what's the best thing that you've bought for $3.99? It's only $3.99. I just bought it. It also is a nearly endless supply of top shelf comedy, literally months worth of exclusive originals, face-melting stand-up, next day late night, and great catalogs of classics. We have all of your own unique tastes. I love the Hidden America with Jonah Ray. It's basically, it takes you on a comedic journey throughout America on Hidden America with Jonah Ray, only on CISO, so you can only get it on the app. Hidden America is like a fake travel show where the places are real, but the people aren't. So, and I was reading something, it's kind of like the Anthony Bourdain's, but it's like a comic relief on it, so that's one of my favorites. And if you're serious about comedy, then you just have to try CISO. You can stream it anytime, anywhere, on virtually any device. And you can go right now. You know, my listeners can try CISO free for 2 months when you use the promo code podcast1 at checkout. And it's CISO, which is SEESO. And that's free 2 months and use the promo code podcast1. So just go to CISO, SEESO.com right now. Sign up for 2 months free with the promo code podcast1 at checkout. And again, that's CISO.com, promo code podcast1. If you didn't catch it, I said it like 5 times. So definitely go check it out. There's so many great originals. Some of the other shows are Take My Wife, Bajillion Dollar Properties. I haven't watched that one yet, but I've been wanting to get to it. And there's a bunch of other great original comedy shows. So if you are a fan of New Girl and you love the comedy on it, especially like characters like Winston, I am sure you will love CISO. So make sure you go check it out. Again, it's CISO.com, SEESO. offbeat.com. But on another note of hilarity was Nick's whole scary thing about buying something off of the registry. Of course,
What is that?
he can't do anything normal.
He really can't. And I feel like Nick always kind of has this like old soul to him.
He does.
And it's just so funny because on a surface level, you would never think that. And I think, again, it's another thing that I always forget about Nick. You know, like he's a writer and he has like this rich deepness to it.
Yeah.
But then he's such a goofball on the outside. You're like, what?
It is funny, and like the whole like he's just worried about the internet. He doesn't have a cell phone like that. It's a smartphone because he's worried about it. He doesn't like credit cards. The one episode where he's like, they have all your information, and it's like, yeah, Nick.
Well, even in this episode, they were talking about the internet. He's like, have you been on the internet lately? Like back when I remember. Like, what do you mean back when you remember it? Who doesn't go on the internet every single
It's
day?
like only Nick, and it's like I just think about it. What does he do when he's not at the bar? Because
What does he do?
I feel like, okay, so if Reagan, which again we haven't heard about Reagan, go figure. So if like Reagan isn't there, and like if he's in his room doing gosh knows what does he do? I feel like Nick is just, I feel like he might actually just like if you were to like look into the life of Nick, I feel like it would just be like him just like staring at the wall, like talking to it, being like, wow, like you're like thinking of it as like a person. Like no one gives you enough credit or something crazy like that.
That's so funny. I could actually so picture that.
Right?
Like, just totally doing something that like no one would think of.
Yeah, which he clearly thinks of the craziest gift to get Cece and Schmidt. I did not think he was going to go to that level.
That totally shocked me. That really took it out of me. I was like, wait, what?
Like,
but I'm also surprised that Schmidt didn't have more of a dramatic reaction. Like, it was pretty melancholy
It
for like
some of the things he said, though, he's like, it's just disgusting. Like, he was really appalled by it. But yeah, I'm surprised when they first saw it that you weren't like, what? Like, you know how Schmidt does that? Like, what? Are you kidding me? Which it was really weird. And he was like, it was Pretty Woman, but with Cece and Schmidt on it. Like, Nick, come on. You couldn't have thought of anything else. And then again, I was kind of thinking, like, all right, Nick, this is something for Cece and Schmidt. And you wanted something that they're not going to, like, throw away in their garbage. But you're not going to live with them in 6 months. So they can't look at the tattoo every day. So why?
And considering it's so special, he kind of picked like a weird place. Like you would think if it meant that much to me, he'd like put it on his arm or something where everyone would always see it, but the back of your calf.
It was like, weird.
What?
Like,
It's the weirdest thing. I was totally not expecting that at all.
No, and I was like, seriously, just give him the blender. When he said the comment too, speaking about the blender, he was like, I mean, like the 4,000. She's like, well, you know they haven't made 4,000. He's like, you're trying to tell me that after 4 they've gotten it right? Pff, okay.
So funny. Well, then he called Cece a nurse. And I was like, where
Well,
have
I
you
was
been?
like, yeah, where
Are you
where
guys not like friends anymore? Do you know what goes on in each other's life?
Yeah, like last time I thought we talked about like her job. She like was not going back to school, and she was gonna be a manager for the models.
What happened to that? I would like to hear more about that, by the way.
She's still at the bar, so I guess that's something. But what was okay? So obviously we know Schmidt's reaction was a little bit melancholy and not as exciting as not excitingly terrified as it should have been. But how did you feel about Cece and Schmidt's reactions when they did finally speak their piece?
I don't know. I guess I kind of expected it wasn't that exciting to me.
Yeah.
I just was in shock the last 5 minutes of the episode because of this. I was
You're like, okay. And then
what did you think?
I was just kind of I didn't really understand why he would. I was like, seriously, because now we have to make sure he's always going to have a tattoo on his calf. So, are they going to bring it up again? Or is this something that's just going to, wash away? So, I kind of was I couldn't really, think of it as, a reality thing, in my world of the Lofties, in my world of New Girl. I was like, is this something that's going to stay? But then when they mentioned the laser removal, I thought that was, okay, fine, let's do that. But I will say, just jumping a little bit ahead, one of my favorite quotes came out of that whole altercation, which was when he was like, stop the horror! It's disgusting! I just can't. And that, the way he was saying it, that was my favorite Schmidt quote. But yeah, going back to the reactions, I was just kind of like, okay, well, I would have been a little bit more terrified that my face was on his calf. And let's just remember that he didn't get it removed. He just added to it.
Just so much worse.
It looked so creepy.
It was weird.
I was like, oh, Nick, okay, you've done a lot of weird things, but I will say that's probably one of the weirdest. One of the weirdest. But what was your favorite Schmidt quote of the episode?
My favorite Schmidt quote was one of the first lines of the episode, and I'm trying to remember. He had that dolphin statue.
It was the porpoise porn.
Porpoise porn.
I wrote that down.
I was like,
Like porpoise porn, and he was like, "Don't even write her a letter." Like, don't. She's like, "That's my mom's sister."
Sincerely.
Yeah, he said, "Best CC Schmidt." No one likes it, but I mean, it was kind of a weird statue of
strange.
dolphins. Yeah, kind of. I don't even. What would you do with something like that? I guess maybe like put it in the bathroom, like on top of your toilet. Like, okay, weird enough. But you know, I guess that just brings us to our predictions for our next episode. So, should we get into some predictions?
Predictions?
Possibly we should.
I think so.
All right,
You
so
start.
I'll start. My predictions.
Now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Okay, so my predictions lie with hopefully we'll see Robbie come back and then we're gonna go on a date. And I am not, I guess I always say this, but I don't think these are like predictions. I like want these things to happen.
Wishes.
I have wishes for the show. I hope that Robbie comes back and they get on a second date so we can like figure out where that relationship's gonna go. So we can kind of like speed along the process with Jess. But like honestly, I feel like so far usually like it's all been about Jess's love life, and we haven't seen too much of that recently. It's kind of been like a different take on like their relationship as friends, which has kind of been nice because like she's been spending more time with Winston and like doing things like, you know, we're seeing a little bit more dynamic of each of the characters rather than bringing in new ones. So I'm not saying that I don't want there to be more relationships, because I do, but yeah, maybe we'll see Robbie, and then I want to see Ally come back.
Me too.
I want a Winston and Ally like scene of like something that's like gonna progress their relationship, because you know what, this is one of my predictions. I could see Winston and Ally maybe getting engaged or like in like hopes of marriage towards the end of the season.
Okay.
So those are my like two things.
Two
Yeah.
predictions.
So what about you, Tessa?
I predict Robbie will be back in the next episode or two. And I predict Cece and Schmidt having an argument soon.
Yeah, you know what? That brings up a great point, because we haven't like seen too much of them. They've been kind of the back focus. Like, oh, like there's a scene and they're part of like the second story, and then they're just like sitting together and like that's it. Like we haven't seen too much of that. The focus hasn't been on them whatsoever.
No, and I want to see more of their marriage, especially living in the loft. I feel like at this point they must be really fed up with it, but I don't see that.
Yeah, we haven't seen too much of what they're actually feeling with married life. And I feel like last season it was so focused on their wedding and like getting them together. So now it's like I want a little taste of some CC and Schmidt action.
Yes.
So I agree with you on that.
And I would like a Reagan update.
Yeah. Yeah, we need some updates.
Just another little one line.
Yeah, because we know
I
that
asked for it last time when I got it, but
you
I
did.
want another one.
We need another one. Okay. Well, I guess on that note, that brings us to a close for this week's recap of New Girl. So make sure that you watch us next week. We will be on Tuesday. Make sure that you subscribe, comment on our YouTube page, and make sure you go to AfterBuzz TV Facebook and just comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at Ally Nasta and on Instagram at Ally Girl. And Tessa, where can they find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Tessa_Saval.
Alrighty, guys, we will talk to you next week. See ya.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.